The stars looked different through the cracked window of the rescue ship. Captain Taiho pressed his scaled hand against the console and watched the red planet grow larger on the screen. Somewhere down there, a human cargo ship had crashed 3 days ago. Somewhere down there, people might still be alive. "We're picking up the distress beacon," Jiwon said from her station. She was human, like the people they were looking for. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls. "The signal is weak but steady. The ship is called Morningstar." Taiho had been doing rescue missions for 40 years. He had seen ships torn in half by asteroids. He had found survivors living in emergency pods for weeks. He had also found ships where everyone was dead. Every mission was different, but his job was always the same: find survivors and bring them home. "How many crew members?" he asked. 12, Jiwon answered. "All human." They were carrying botanical supplies to the frontier colonies. The rescue ship, Eternal Horizon, dropped through the atmosphere. The planet below was covered in purple rocks and deep canyons. It was beautiful in a harsh way, like most worlds that humans had no business visiting. But space travel was dangerous, and accidents happened even on simple cargo runs. They found the Morningstar wedged between two crystal cliffs. The ship's hull was torn open in several places. Black smoke still rose from the engines. The emergency lights blinked red in the afternoon sun. "Life support failed," Hyun said. He was the engineer, with 4 arms that could fix almost anything. "No power to the main sections." If anyone survived, they would need to be in a sealed room with its own oxygen supply. Taeho ordered the team to suit up. Jiwon, Hyun, and Bowman followed him to the airlock. Bowman was the medical officer, his crystal body reflecting light in rainbow colors. He carried medical supplies for 12 possible survivors. They entered through the cargo bay. The door had been blown off during the crash. Inside, boxes were scattered everywhere. Some had broken open, spilling seeds and soil across the metal floor. There was blood on the walls. Not much, but enough to make Taiho's stomach tighten. "Follow the blood trail," he said quietly. The trail led them deeper into the ship. The corridors were dark except for their helmet lights. Every step echoed in the silence. Taiho had done this many times, but he never got used to the feeling of walking through a dead ship. They found the crew in the medical bay. 11 bodies lay on the floor, covered in terrible wounds. Deep cuts and bite marks covered their suits. Some of the wounds went right through the metal and into flesh. Whatever killed them was strong and had very sharp teeth. "Only 11, Jiwon whispered. "There should be 12. Bowman scanned the bodies. "These wounds match animal attacks. Large predators. But there are no large animals registered on this planet." Hyun checked his scanner. His multiple eyes went wide. "Captain, I'm reading movement. Multiple life signs. They're small, but there are many of them. They're in the botanical lab." "What kind of life signs?" Taeho asked. Hyun's voice shook. "They match Krath signatures, Captain. But they're too small to be adults. They must be cubs." Everyone froze. Krath were the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They were 3 tons of muscle, scales, and teeth. Entire planets had fallen trying to fight them. A single adult Krath could destroy a small military unit, and this ship somehow had Krath cubs on board. "Weapons ready," Taeho ordered. "Move slowly. If we see any adults, we run." They approached the botanical lab. The door was sealed but functional. Through the small window they could see movement inside. Lots of movement. Small shapes crawled over equipment and plants. The grow lights were still on, making everything bright and warm. "I'm opening it," Jiwon said. Her hand moved to the control panel. "Wait," Taiho said. But it was too late. The door slid open. The team raised their weapons. Taeho's finger rested on the trigger. They stepped inside, ready for anything. What they saw made no sense. The botanical lab had been turned into a nest. Emergency blankets were piled in the center, mixed with dirt from the hydroponic beds. The temperature was warm, almost hot. And sitting in the middle of it all was a young human woman. She was covered in scratches and bruises. Her uniform was torn and dirty. Her eyes were red from crying or lack of sleep, probably both. But she was alive. And she was surrounded by 47 Krath cubs. The cubs were the size of large dogs. Their scales were black and shiny like obsidian. Glowing marks ran along their spines in patterns that pulsed with light. They had small horns on their heads and tails that ended in sharp points. Even as babies, they looked dangerous. Their claws could probably cut through metal, and their teeth were already sharp and white. But they weren't attacking. They were playing. Some cubs wrestled with each other, rolling across the floor. Others climbed on the woman's shoulders and arms. One tiny cub sat in her lap, its forked tongue tasting the air. Another one chewed on her hair gently, like a puppy with a toy. They made soft chirping sounds, almost like birds. The woman looked up at the rescue team. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please don't hurt them. They're just babies." Tahoe slowly lowered his weapon. He had never seen anything like this in 4 decades of service. Krath didn't act like this. They attacked everything that moved. They showed no mercy, no kindness, no recognition of other life forms. Yet here were 47 cubs treating a human like she was their mother. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Minji," the woman said. "I'm the botanist. The last one alive. Can you stand?" Bowman asked, moving forward slowly. The cubs watched him but didn't attack. They seemed more curious than aggressive. "I haven't tried in a while," Minji admitted. "Every time I move too far from them, they cry. And when they cry, it's so loud. I was afraid it would bring their parents back." "Where are the parents?" Tahoe asked, though he feared he knew the answer. Minji's eyes filled with tears. "Dead. They brought the babies to me and then left. I think they were poisoned by something in the ship. They knew they were dying, so they left their cubs with the only person who didn't try to kill them. Me." Jiwan knelt down slowly, keeping her movements calm. One cub approached her, sniffing at her hand. "This is incredible," she breathed. "Krath are supposed to be mindless killers, but these cubs are showing social behavior, pack bonding. They've imprinted on Minji as their caretaker." "This is also illegal," Hyun said nervously. "Krath are classified as hazard level 9. Protocol says we have to destroy them immediately." "No." Minji tried to stand but stumbled. Several cubs rushed to her side, supporting her with their small bodies. "You can't kill them. They haven't done anything wrong. They're innocent." Tahoe looked at the scene before him. A young human woman, barely alive, protecting creatures that would grow into the galaxy's deadliest predators. Cubs that should be attacking everything but instead acted like loyal pets. It was impossible. It was against every rule in the book. It was exactly the kind of situation that could end his career, but it was also the most remarkable thing he had ever seen. "We need to contact Alliance Command," he said finally. "This is beyond my authority to decide." As Bowman began treating Minji's injuries and Hyun sent the report to headquarters, Tahoe watched one tiny cub curl up in Minji's arms. The cub closed its eyes and made a soft purring sound. Minji stroked its scales gently, the way someone might pet a cat. Whatever happened next, Tahoe knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never look at humans or Krath the same way again. Minji drank water from a pouch while Bowman checked her vital signs. She hadn't eaten properly in 3 days. Most of her emergency rations had gone to the cubs. Her hands shook as she held the water and her lips were cracked from dehydration. "You need to eat," Bowman said gently. His crystal body glowed with soft blue light. "Your body is shutting down." "The cubs needed it more," Minji said. She watched as several cubs played nearby, wrestling over a piece of torn blanket. They were so hungry when they hatched. "I couldn't let them starve." Jiwan sat cross-legged on the floor, taking notes on her tablet. 2 cubs had approached her, sniffing her boots with curiosity. "Tell us what happened," she said. "From the beginning." Minji closed her eyes, remembering. 3 days ago, we hit an asteroid field. The navigation system failed. We crashed hard. I was in the botanical lab when it happened, so I was protected by the equipment. When I got out, alarms were everywhere. The cargo bay was torn open. "What was in the cargo?" Tahoe asked. "Seeds, soil, plants for the colonies." "That's what I thought." Minji's voice grew quiet. "But there was a sealed container I'd never seen before. It must have been hidden cargo. When the ship crashed, it broke open. Inside were eggs. Dozens of eggs. Krath eggs," Hyun said. "Someone was smuggling them. They're worth millions on the black market. Weapons dealers buy them." Minji nodded. "The eggs started hatching in the heat from the damaged reactor. The captain tried to contain them, but then the adults came. I don't know how they found us so fast. Maybe they could sense their eggs." "They attacked the ship. The crew fought back?" Tahoe asked. "They tried. They had weapons, but it didn't matter. The adult Krath were too strong. Too fast, I heard the screaming. I hid in the botanical lab and locked the door." Tears ran down Minji's face. "I should have helped them, but I was too scared." "You survived," Bowman said softly. "That's what matters." After the fighting stopped, the adults came to my door. I could see them through the window. 3 of them. They were huge. Their eyes glowed red. They could have broken down the door easily. Minji looked at the cubs playing around her, but they didn't. They just stood there making strange sounds. Then they left. They left their cubs with you, G1 said. Why? I think they were dying. Something in the ship's atmosphere or the radiation. They knew they couldn't survive. So they brought all the cubs to me. 47 of them. They pushed them through a ventilation shaft into my lab. Then the adults left and never came back. Taeho's communicator beeped. It was Alliance Command. He stepped away to take the call while G1 continued her examination of the cubs. This is unprecedented, G1 said, running her scanner over one cub. Krath are supposed to be territorial predators with no social structure beyond basic pack hunting. But these cubs are showing advanced social behaviors. They play together. They communicate. They've bonded with Minji as if she were their mother. They think she is their mother, Bowman observed. Look at how they stay close to her. When she moves, they follow. When she makes sounds, they respond. It was true. When Minji hummed softly, several cubs turned their heads toward her. When she patted the ground, 2 cubs came running over. She had somehow learned to communicate with them in just 3 days. Taeho returned, his face grim. Alliance Command has ordered immediate elimination of all Krath cubs. We're to euthanize them and evacuate the survivor. No. Minji tried to stand, but her legs couldn't support her. The cubs sensed her distress immediately. They gathered around her, chirping loudly. Their glowing marks pulsed faster, turning from blue to orange. You can't kill them. They're innocent. Minji, listen to me, Taeho said carefully. I understand what you're feeling. But Krath have killed billions of people across hundreds of planets. They're classified as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. We can't let them live, even as cubs, and they trusted me. Minji's voice broke. Their parents trusted me to keep them safe. I won't betray that. I won't. She grabbed a control panel and locked the laboratory doors. If you try to come in here with weapons, I'll vent the atmosphere. We'll all die together. Minji, be reasonable, Hyon said. Reasonable. Minji laughed, but it was a broken sound. I've spent 3 days keeping these babies alive with nothing but emergency rations and hope. I've watched my entire crew die. I've slept surrounded by creatures that could kill me with one swipe of their claws. And they didn't. They protected me. They trusted me. That's more reasonable than murdering children because you're afraid of what they might become. Silence filled the room. Even the cubs seemed to sense the tension, growing quiet and pressing close to Minji. Ji-won spoke up. Captain, there's something you need to understand. Humans have a unique trait among galactic species. We practice cross-species parenting. Throughout human history, we've raised wolf pups, orphaned birds, even large predators. We extend our parental instincts beyond our own species. The Krath parents somehow recognized this in Minji. What are you saying? Taeho asked. I'm saying the adult Krath saw something in human behavior that made them believe Minji could care for their young. They weren't being random. They were making a choice based on observation. That suggests intelligence we never knew they possessed. Taeho looked at Minji, then at the cubs, then back at Minji. He had spent 4 decades following orders. He had never questioned protocol, but he had also never encountered a situation like this. I need to think, he said. Minji, I'm giving you 72 hours. If you can prove these cubs can be safely transported and studied, I'll recommend against immediate elimination. But if there's any sign of danger, any aggression, the order will be carried out. Do you understand? Minji wiped her eyes. Yes, thank you. For the next 3 days, Minji worked with Ji-won to document everything about the cubs. They recorded how the cubs responded to different sounds. They noted how the cubs played together, showing no serious aggression despite their sharp claws and teeth. They observed how the cubs recognized individual team members, showing more curiosity toward Ji-won and Bowman, while keeping distance from the nervous Hyun. Most importantly, Minji demonstrated basic training. She taught the cubs simple commands, stay, come, gentle. It was slow work, but the cubs learned. They weren't mindless killers. They were intelligent animals capable of learning and bonding. On the 3rd day, Ji-won made a breakthrough. She was analyzing Minji's clothing and skin samples when she found something remarkable. Minji, you've been marked, Ji-won said, showing her the scanner results. The adult Krath didn't just leave their cubs with you. They marked you with a chemical signature. It's a pheromone tag that Krath used to identify family members. What does that mean? Minji asked. It means they adopted you. In Krath social structure, you're not just a caretaker. Your peck. Your family. The implications were staggering. If other Krath could sense this marking, they might recognize Minji as one of their own. The deadliest predators in the galaxy had welcomed a human into their family structure. Taiho sent a comprehensive report to Alliance Command, including all video evidence and Jiwan's findings. The response came faster than expected. A warship was being dispatched. Admiral Sungho himself was coming to review the situation. That night, Minji sat with the cubs in their makeshift nest. They had grown in just 3 days, already noticeably larger and stronger, but they still acted like children, playing with her hair and making soft chirping sounds when she stroked their scales. "I won't let them hurt you," she whispered to the cubs. "I promise." One tiny cub looked up at her with bright yellow eyes. It made a small sound almost like a purr and curled against her side. In that moment, Minji knew she would fight the entire galaxy if she had to. These weren't monsters. They were her family now, and family was worth fighting for. The warship appeared like a dark star against the purple sky. It was 10 times larger than the eternal horizon, bristling with weapons and armor. The righteous authority had come to enforce protocol, and Admiral Sungho did not believe in exceptions. Minji watched the warship dock through the laboratory window. Her hands trembled. She knew what was coming. The cubs sensed her fear and gathered closer, their glowing marks pulsing with concern. "Stay calm," Jiwan said, placing a hand on Minji's shoulder. "We have evidence. We have data. The Admiral will have to consider it." "You don't know him," Taiho said quietly. "Admiral Sungho follows regulations absolutely. He's never bent a rule in 30 years of service." Heavy footsteps echoed through the Morning Star's corridors. Admiral Sungho entered with 6 armed soldiers. He was tall and angular, his gray uniform perfect and unwrinkled. His face showed no emotion as he surveyed the scene. "Captain Taiho," the Admiral said, "your report was disturbing. You've delayed a direct order from Alliance Command for 3 days. Explain yourself." "Sir, the situation is unique. The cubs have shown no aggression. They've bonded with the human survivor. I believed the circumstances warranted further investigation." "The regulations are clear," Admiral Sungho said. "All Krath specimens are to be eliminated on site. There are no exceptions for age or behavior. These creatures are responsible for billions of deaths across Alliance space." "But these cubs didn't kill anyone," Minji said, stepping forward. Several cubs moved with her, staying at her legs like protective dogs. "They're innocent. They've never hurt anyone." Admiral Sungho looked at her with cold eyes. "They will. When they reach maturity, they'll be 3-ton killing machines. Every adult Krath we've encountered has shown extreme aggression. We cannot risk allowing these creatures to grow." "With respect, Admiral," Jiwan said, "we've never had the opportunity to study Krath in a non-hostile environment. These cubs are exhibiting behaviors we've never documented. They're capable of learning, social bonding, and recognizing non-threatening behavior." "Show me," the Admiral said flatly. Minji took a deep breath. She knelt down and made a soft clicking sound. Immediately, 3 cubs came to her. She held up her hand and said, "Stay." The cubs sat, their tails curling around their bodies. She backed away slowly. The cubs remained still, watching her but not moving. "Come," she said, opening her arms. The cubs rushed to her, chirping happily. "They respond to commands," Minji said. "They understand." "They're not mindless killers." Admiral Sungho watched without expression. "Interesting, but insufficient. Many dangerous animals can be trained. That doesn't make them safe." "Sir, the political situation has changed," Taiho said carefully. "News of this situation has leaked to the public. Millions of beings across Alliance space are following this story. The image of a human protecting Krath cubs has captured public imagination." "I don't make decisions based on public opinion," the Admiral replied. "I make decisions based on regulations and safety." "Then test them," Minji said suddenly. "Give me a chance to prove they can be controlled in a stressful situation. If I fail, you can proceed with your orders. But if I succeed, you have to consider alternatives." The Admiral studied her for a long moment. "Very well. Here's the test. You will be separated from the cubs for 1 hour. If they remain calm and can be reunited with you without incident, I will consider evacuation to a research facility instead of immediate elimination." "No," Jiwan protested. "Separation will cause extreme stress. The cubs have imprinted on Minji. This test is designed to fail." "Then it will prove my point," Admiral Sungho said. These creatures are too dangerous to keep alive. Do you accept the terms, Miss Minji? Minji looked at the cubs. They trusted her completely. She couldn't fail them. I accept. The soldiers escorted Minji out of the laboratory. The moment the door closed, the cubs began to cry. It was a terrible sound, high-pitched and desperate. Their glowing marks flashed red. They clawed at the door, leaving deep scratches in the metal. Their stress hormones are spiking dangerously high, Bowman reported, watching his scanner. If this continues, they could hurt themselves or each other. In the ship's medical bay, Minji sat with her hands pressed over her ears, trying to block out the crying. Tears ran down her face. Please, she whispered. Please stay calm. Please be okay. 30 minutes passed. The crying intensified. Several cubs had started ramming the door with their small bodies. Then the alarm started blaring. Hull breach, Hyan shouted. 2 cubs have broken through a weakened panel. They're in the ventilation system. Track them, Admiral Sung-ho ordered. His soldiers raised their weapons. The cubs moved through the ship with surprising speed. They were small enough to fit through tight spaces, but their claws gave them traction on the metal walls. They tracked Minji's scent with perfect accuracy. When they burst into the medical bay, soldiers aimed their weapons. Don't shoot, Minji screamed. She threw herself in front of the cubs, but the cubs weren't attacking. They ran straight to Minji and curled around her, trembling. Their glowing marks slowly faded from red back to blue. They made small, pitiful sounds and pressed their faces against her. They just wanted to find her, Bowman said softly. They weren't aggressive. They were scared. Admiral Sung-ho lowered his weapon slowly. He had seen combat for 3 decades. He had faced enemies without fear. But this scene affected him in a way he didn't expect. These creatures, these supposedly mindless killers, were acting like frightened children seeking comfort from their mother. The test is over, he said quietly. Later that day, Admiral Sung-ho met with Taiho and Jiwon in private. Minji was resting with the cubs, all of them exhausted from the ordeal. I've seen Krath attack fully armed military units, the Admiral said. I've seen them destroy starships. I've never seen them show vulnerability or seek comfort. What I witnessed today challenges everything we know about this species. What are you saying, sir? Taiho asked. I'm saying I was wrong to dismiss this situation without proper investigation. These cubs deserve further study. He looked at Jiwon. There's a research station on Kepler 438b. It's remote, heavily secured, designed for dangerous specimen research. I'm authorizing transport of the cubs and the human to that facility. For how long? Jiwon asked. 1 standard year. If the cubs show any uncontrollable aggression during that time, they will be terminated immediately. Miss Minji will be their primary caretaker. She will be under constant surveillance. If anything goes wrong, she will be held responsible. These are non-negotiable terms. She'll accept, Taiho said with certainty. I know, Admiral Sung-ho said. That's what concerns me. She's willing to sacrifice everything for these creatures. That level of dedication is either remarkably noble or dangerously foolish, perhaps both. When they told Minji about the decision, she didn't hesitate. I'll do it. Whatever it takes. You understand what you're giving up? Admiral Sung-ho asked. Your freedom, your privacy, your safety. If the cubs become dangerous, you could be killed. Minji looked at the cubs sleeping peacefully in their nest. One tiny cub had its head resting on her leg, purring softly in its sleep. They're worth it, she said simply. As the eternal horizon prepared for the journey to the research station, Jiwon discovered something troubling in the recovered ship data. She pulled Taiho aside. The chemical marking on Minji, Jiwon said. I've been researching Krath pheromone communication. This isn't just a family marker. It's a pack mother identifier. Adult Krath across the sector could potentially recognize it. What does that mean? Taiho asked. It means Minji isn't just raising these cubs. She's been adopted into Krath social structure. Other Krath might recognize her as kin. They might protect her, or they might come looking for the cubs. Jiwon looked worried. We don't know which it will be. Taiho watched Minji through the window, surrounded by sleeping cubs. She looked peaceful for the first time since they'd found her. Should we tell her? Not yet, Jiwon decided. She has enough to worry about. But we need to be prepared. This situation could become much more complicated than anyone anticipated. As the ship lifted off from the purple planet, heading toward Kepler 438b, none of them knew that their journey would change the galaxy forever. One human and 47 cubs were about to rewrite everything the Alliance knew about the most dangerous species in known space. The Kepler research station hung in orbit like a silver crown around a dark blue planet. It was built for studying dangerous species, with reinforced walls, multiple containment systems, and enough security to hold the worst nightmares the galaxy had to offer. Now it would be home to 47 Krath cubs and one exhausted human woman. Dr. Youngji met them at the docking bay. She was a behavioral psychologist who had worked with dozens of alien species. But even she looked nervous when she saw the cubs. "Welcome to Kepler Station," she said, trying to sound confident. "We've prepared a large habitat for the cubs. It has everything they should need." Minji carried one sleeping cub in her arms while the others followed close behind. They moved like a small army, staying in formation around her. Security Chief Dayun watched them with her hand on her weapon, ready for trouble. The habitat was impressive. It was the size of 3 warehouses, with artificial sunlight, plants, rocks, and even a small stream. The cubs explored cautiously at first, then with growing excitement. They played in the water, climbed the rocks, and chased each other through the vegetation. "They're adapting well," Dr. Youngji noted, recording everything on her tablet. "Better than I expected." Minji established a routine quickly. Morning feeding at 0600 hours, training sessions at 0900, playtime in the afternoon, evening feeding at 1800, then quiet time before sleep. The cubs thrived on the structure. They grew rapidly, doubling in size within the first month. Dr. Hanul was a Kelthorian scientist with weak telepathic abilities. After 2 months, he managed to make mental contact with the cubs. What he discovered amazed everyone. "They're not just intelligent animals," he explained at a team meeting. "They have rudimentary sentience. They remember their parents. They have emotions. They feel loyalty, curiosity, even something like affection. They're far more complex than we believed." As weeks turned into months, the cubs developed distinct personalities. Minji named them after Korean words for stars and celestial objects. Hanul was the curious one, always exploring new areas of the habitat. Bayol was cautious and protective of the smaller cubs. Dari was playful and bonded quickly with Dr. Youngji. Haru was the most aggressive, constantly testing boundaries. The training progressed well. Minji taught them to sit, stay, come, and release on command. She used positive reinforcement, rewarding good behavior with food and affection. It was slow, patient work, but the cubs learned. Then came the incident that nearly ended everything. 6 months into the project, Dr. Youngji was conducting a routine examination of Haru. The cub had always been difficult, but this day he was particularly agitated. When Youngji tried to take a blood sample, Haru lashed out. His claws raked across her arm, cutting through the protective suit and into flesh. Blood splattered across the white floor. Youngji screamed. Haru backed away, confused by his own actions. Security rushed in. Dayun aimed her weapon at Haru. "That cub is too dangerous. It needs to be eliminated now." "No." Minji threw herself between Dayun and Haru. "It was an accident. He was scared." "He attacked a staff member," Dayun said coldly. "This is exactly what the protocols are designed to prevent. One aggressive incident means termination." Dr. Youngji clutched her injured arm. Blood seeped through the bandages Bowman was applying. But she shook her head. "It was my fault. I pushed him too hard. I should have recognized the warning signs." "That doesn't matter," Dayun insisted. "One strike and this whole project is over. Those are the rules." Minji looked at Haru. The cub was trembling, his glowing marks flickering irregularly. He looked scared, not aggressive. "Give me 2 weeks alone with him. I'll work on his behavior issues. If he shows any more aggression after that, I won't fight the termination order." After much debate, they agreed. Minji isolated Haru in a separate section of the habitat. She spent every waking hour with him, working on trust exercises and behavioral conditioning. It was exhausting, frustrating work. Haru resisted at first, growling and snapping, but slowly, he began to respond. Minji discovered that Haru became aggressive when he felt trapped or cornered. By giving him space and approaching from the side rather than head-on, she could avoid triggering his defensive instincts. She taught him calming techniques, using specific sounds and gestures to help him relax when stressed. After 2 weeks, Haru had transformed. He still had an aggressive streak, but it was manageable. He responded to Minji's commands and showed genuine remorse when he made mistakes. When Dr. Youngji visited him, Haru approached slowly and gently touched his nose to her injured arm, making soft, apologetic sounds. "He's sorry," Dr. Hunnell confirmed through his telepathic link. "He understands he hurt her. He wants to make amends." The incident became a turning point. It proved that even the most difficult cubs could be rehabilitated with proper handling. Security Chief Daeun remained skeptical, but she couldn't deny the results. Meanwhile, news of the project spread across the galaxy. Media broadcasts showed footage of Minji playing with the cubs, teaching them, even sleeping alongside them in the habitat. The images captivated billions of viewers. Minji became famous, a symbol of humanity's unique capacity for cross-species compassion. But the attention brought problems too. Political factions debated the project endlessly. Some wanted it shut down immediately. Others wanted to weaponize the research, creating controllable Krath soldiers. Minji rejected both extremes, insisting the cubs were neither pets nor weapons. They were living beings deserving respect and care. Admiral Sungho visited the station regularly. The stern military officer who once demanded the cubs' immediate destruction had become one of the project's strongest defenders. He watched Minji's work with quiet admiration. "I was wrong about you," he told her during one visit, "and I was wrong about them. You've accomplished something I thought impossible." "We're not finished yet," Minji said, watching the cubs play in the artificial sunlight. "They're still growing. When they reach full size, everything could change." 10 months into the study, disaster struck without warning. Alarms blared throughout the station. "Containment breach on level 7, someone shouted over the intercom. "Wild Krath have infiltrated the facility." 3 adult Krath had somehow bypassed the station's security. They were fully grown, massive, creatures with scales like armor and claws that could cut through steel. Security teams engaged them immediately, but 2 guards died within seconds. The adults were heading straight for the habitat where the cubs lived. "Evacuate Minji," Daeun ordered. "Lock down the habitat." But Minji refused to leave the cubs. When the adult Krath breached the habitat, she stood her ground. The cubs sensed the approaching danger and formed a protective circle around her. Even little Dari, the playful one, bared his teeth and growled. The wild adults entered the habitat, their massive bodies filling the space. They were terrifying, their eyes glowing red with aggression. Security teams aimed weapons from the doorway, waiting for the inevitable attack. But the attack never came. The adult Krath stopped when they saw Minji surrounded by the cubs. They tilted their heads, sniffing the air. Their glowing marks pulsed in complex patterns. The cubs responded with their own light patterns, a conversation in a language no human understood. Then, impossibly, the wild adults backed away. They made a low rumbling sound, almost respectful, and retreated from the habitat. Security tracked them as they left the station completely, returning to their ship and fleeing the system. "What just happened?" Dr. Youngji asked in shock. Dr. Hanul reviewed the telepathic impressions he'd received. The adults recognized Minji's chemical marking. The cubs communicated that she's pack mother. The adults respected that designation. In Krath social structure, Minji has authority over these cubs. Even wild adults acknowledge it. The implications were staggering. Minji wasn't just raising 47 cubs. She had somehow become recognized as Krath kin by the entire species. The deadliest predators in the galaxy had accepted a human into their social hierarchy. That night, Jiwan called an emergency meeting. "This changes everything. If Krath can recognize Minji as family, it means they have more complex social structures than we ever imagined. It means communication might be possible. Real communication, not just violence." "You're suggesting first contact?" Admiral Sungho asked. "I'm suggesting we try. We've been fighting Krath for centuries. Maybe it's time we tried talking instead. Ji-won looked at Minji. And you're the only one who can do it. Minji sat quietly, one cub asleep in her lap. The responsibility was overwhelming. But when she looked at the cubs, her family, she knew what she had to do. Tell me what you need, she said simply. The Galactic Alliance Council met in emergency session. Representatives from 50 species filled the Grand Chamber, all debating the same question. Should they attempt first contact with the Krath species? This is madness, one council member declared. The Krath have killed billions of our people. We should be planning their extinction, not negotiating with them. But we've never understood them, another argued. What if the attacks were defensive? What if we've been invading their territory without realizing it? Ambassador Junho, a human diplomat, presented the proposal. We have a unique opportunity. For the first time in history, we have a human who has been accepted into Krath's social structure. Miss Minji can serve as an intermediary. If there's any chance for peace, we must take it. After days of debate, the council approved the mission by a narrow vote. A small diplomatic vessel, the Harmony's Promise, would travel to Vrath Prime, the Krath homeworld. The team would include Minji, her cubs, Ji-won, Captain Taiho, Dr. Hanul, and Ambassador Junho. The night before departure, Minji couldn't sleep. She stood in the habitat watching the cubs rest. They were nearly full-grown now, massive creatures with scales like obsidian and claws that could tear through metal, yet they still acted like children around her, seeking her approval and comfort. Are you afraid? Ji-won asked, joining her. Terrified, Minji admitted. What if I fail? What if I make things worse? You won't, Ji-won said confidently. You've already accomplished the impossible. You turned the galaxy's most feared predators into a family. If anyone can bridge this gap, it's you. The journey to Vrath Prime took 6 days. The planet was harsh and beautiful, covered in volcanic mountains and crystal forests. The atmosphere was breathable but hot. Sensors detected thousands of Krath signatures across the surface. They know we're here, Taiho reported from the pilot's seat. Multiple Krath are converging on our landing site. Then let's not keep them waiting, Ambassador Junho said, though his voice shook slightly. The Harmony's Promise landed in a clearing surrounded by crystal formations. Through the windows, they could see adult Krath emerging from the forest. Dozens of them. Their massive bodies moved with predatory grace. Their eyes glowed in the shadows. Minji took a deep breath. Her cubs pressed against her, sensing her fear. Hanul, the curious one who had been the first to trust her, nudged her hand gently. I'm okay, she whispered to him. We're okay. The ramp lowered. Hot air rushed into the ship. Minji walked out first, her cubs following in formation around her. The diplomatic team stayed close behind, unarmed as agreed. The adult Krath circled them immediately. They were enormous up close, 3 times larger than the cubs. Their claws scraped against the rocky ground. They hissed and clicked, their glowing marks pulsing in complex patterns. Minji stood her ground, though every instinct screamed at her to run. The cubs formed a protective circle around her, responding to the adults with their own light patterns and sounds. Then the largest adult approached. It was massive, covered in scars from countless battles. It moved straight toward Minji. Ambassador Junho started to step forward, but Captain Taiho held him back. This was Minji's moment. The adult Krath lowered its head, bringing its face close to Minji's. It sniffed her carefully, sampling the chemical markers on her skin. For a long moment, nothing happened. The world held its breath. Then the adult made a soft rumbling sound and touched its nose to Minji's hand. The aggressive posturing from the other adults ceased immediately. The tension melted away like ice in the sun. They recognize her, Dr. Hanul said in amazement. She's been accepted. What followed was the most remarkable day in galactic history. Dr. Hanul established telepathic contact with the Krath matriarch, the large scarred adult who had first accepted Minji. Through him, they began to communicate. The Krath were sentient, but their intelligence was different from humanoid species. They thought in terms of territory, family, and survival. They had no concept of politics or borders. To them, the Alliance's expansion into their space was an invasion of their breeding grounds. They didn't attack because they're evil, Ji-won explained to the others. They attacked because we were threatening their children. Every conflict we've had with them was because we unknowingly settled on or near their nesting sites. So centuries of war were just a misunderstanding? Ambassador Junho asked in disbelief. Yes, Dr. Hanul confirmed. The Krath see themselves as protectors, not aggressors. They never understood why we kept coming back after they drove us away. Over the next week, they worked to establish common ground. Minji proposed a solution: create protected sanctuaries where Krath could breed safely far from Alliance settlements. In exchange, the Krath would cease attacks on Alliance worlds. The Krath matriarch considered this through Dr. Hanul's telepathic link. Then she agreed with one condition: humans would serve as mediators between Krath and the Alliance. Only humans, with their unique ability to bond across species, could be trusted with this role. And so the Vrath Accords were born, the first peace treaty between the Galactic Alliance and the Krath species. It was signed on Vrath Prime, witnessed by adult Krath, 47 cubs, and a small team of beings who had dared to believe peace was possible. 1 year after the crash of the Morning Star, everything had changed. Minji's cubs were released into a protected sanctuary on Vrath Prime. They remained bonded to her, visiting regularly. Several had cubs of their own now. Following Krath tradition, they brought their offspring to Minji for approval, a gesture of family acceptance. Minji became the first human Krath ambassador, splitting her time between Vrath Prime and Alliance space. It was exhausting work, but meaningful. She was building bridges between species that had been enemies for centuries. Jiwan led the xenobiology department at Kepler Station, now focused on peaceful Krath studies. Scientists from across the galaxy came to learn about the species they once feared. Captain Taiho retired with full honors, his career-defining decision celebrated throughout the Alliance. Dr. Hanul pioneered new methods for communicating with non-humanoid species, opening doors to understanding previously thought impossible. Admiral Sungho became a vocal advocate for peaceful first contact protocols, using his experience with the Krath project to push for diplomatic solutions over military ones. Humanity gained a new reputation in the galactic community. They were no longer seen as just another member species. They were recognized as mediators, bridge builders, beings with a unique talent for understanding and connecting with other species. The image of Minji surrounded by Krath cubs became the symbol of the new era, displayed in schools and government buildings across Alliance space. It represented hope, the possibility that even the deepest conflicts could be resolved through understanding and compassion. 5 years after that first discovery, Minji stood on a hillside on Vrath Prime. The twin suns were setting, painting the crystal forests in shades of orange and purple. Around her, her cubs played with their offspring, creating a small army of Krath in 3 generations. Captain Taiho visited for the anniversary celebration of the Vrath Accords. He was older now, moving slower, but his eyes still sparkled with the same intelligence. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Giving up your old life for them?" Minji watched Hanul, the first cub to trust her, gently nudge his own tiny cub toward her. The baby Krath chirped and climbed into her lap, just like his father had done years ago in that crashed ship's botanical lab. "I didn't give up anything," she said softly, stroking the baby's scales. "I gained a family. I gained a purpose. I gained a whole new way of seeing the galaxy." More ships descended from orbit. Diplomats, scientists, even Admiral Sungho returning for his 10th visit. The scared, exhausted botanist who once hid in a lab surrounded by 47 terrified cubs had become something more. She was proof that compassion could change the galaxy. In the distance, adult Krath gathered to watch the celebration. They no longer saw humans as threats. They saw them as family, as allies, as the strange beings who had taught them that not all outsiders were enemies. That night, as celebrations continued across both Alliance space and Vrath Prime, Minji sat with the baby Krath in her arms while his father rested beside her. The stars above were the same ones she'd seen through the window of that crashed ship a lifetime ago. But everything else had changed. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't technology or military strength. It was something far more powerful: the ability to see past fear, to extend compassion to the most unlikely recipients, to build families from the broken pieces of tragedy. 1 woman and 47 cubs had rewritten galactic history. They had proven that even the deepest hatreds could be transformed into understanding. They had shown that family wasn't about biology or species. It was about loyalty, trust, and the courage to protect those who needed protection, even when the entire galaxy said you were wrong. As Minji drifted to sleep under alien stars, Surrounded by creatures that once would have killed her without hesitation, she smiled. She had kept her promise to those dying Krath parents who had trusted her with their children. She had kept them safe. And in doing so, she had given the galaxy something it desperately needed: hope.